disenfranchise those who want to illegally use the borders, either through information campaigns, through funding local activities, building infrastructure based on rule of law, and also having both a clan and a political buy-in, both at a local level and a higher level. So you need the people on your side. So if you don't have the money to do it, you need people to support you to do it.
Wonderful, thank you. Raymond, I see your hand up, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Madam. I will begin by consenting to what our colleague has said. And I would start by saying that there's need for governments to invest in the human capacities. I'm talking about enhancing the capacities of border officials and local communities through training and the provision of the necessary tools and technologies, such as telecommunication. My experience in the Horn and the Great Lakes region is that governments need to enhance their capacities to police these porous borders through the acquisition and deployment of the necessary smart border control technologies. We are talking about technologies that can aid in collecting and providing warning messages to border control officials and facilitate information sharing between law enforcement agencies. I'm talking about these smart technologies include drones, vehicle monitoring and tracking systems, GIS, radio frequency identification, amongst others. So that is key. The other point I would like to raise that there is need for governments and local administrations to involve border communities in terms of securing borders, to create networks that can be able to pick out early warning messages regarding illegal activities at the border areas, smuggling, drug trafficking, human trafficking, contraband, and all that. So that's what I would like to say about putting in place the necessary technologies and strategies. Thank you.
Wonderful. Abebe, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you so much. I concur with the previous speakers' issues raised. Actually, yes, indeed, what we perceive from the border security management community from our region, the exact problem is institutional and human capacity. Therefore, there is a need. One, the technological tools are needed, particularly for communication and surveillance as well. Therefore, the states need to well equipped with technological devices to control the open, long, and porous borders across the region. The other issue that I want to raise, I concur with my colleague Raymond. The border community has a big role to play. Therefore, we have to also engage them by giving opportunity for communication. Particularly, Raymond knows very well than me. For instance, IGAD has conflict early warning mechanism device. This SEWAR has SEWARUS, this conflict early warning units in each border. So the communication has to be speed up and has to be enhanced. Therefore, the technology, human capacity, infrastructural development is the key issue. Thank you so much.
That's great. Chris, is your hand up again, or was that from the first time? Okay, you're putting it down, good. Raymond?
Yes, there are two other points I wanted to raise on top of what I said earlier. At COMESA now we had projects that are aimed at rehabilitating key border infrastructures, including border crossing posts, customs, bridges, and all that. So governments can also invest in rehabilitating border infrastructure that is already in place, so that it can enhance border crossing and policing. The other challenge we face in the commercial region, and I have seen it across the whole of Africa, from West Africa to Southern Africa to Northern Africa, is to encourage governments to resolve border disputes. Most of the borders that are underdeveloped are contested, and they have remained underdeveloped for the past few decades because they are contested. So those are some of the mechanisms that can lead to enhancing border security and management. Thank you.
That's great. Let me sum up what I think we've, a lot of good points here that when we talk about how we're going to attack this issue, that it's a comprehensive approach. Excuse me, and gentlemen, if I've misunderstood this, put your hand up and come on back online, but that we're looking at a comprehensive approach, that there's not just any one way of addressing this particular issue, but we're looking at how we can integrate technologies, human capacity, so human intelligence, infrastructure capacity, policy, how we integrate and we address with politicians and local governments their policies, and then that we need to take a look at the border dispute issues. That's a big long list, but yet it demonstrates the fact that this is a comprehensive approach, that not any one of us or any one of our organizations, nations, groups have the one answer or solution. Is that a fair conclusion?
Yeah, it is.
Yes, I agree.
Great. All right, let's go on to another question. Let's see. Maybe this is sort of really towards you, but gentlemen, anybody that would like to respond? You spoke of transactional threats in IGAD. Could you please talk to the challenges dealing with the splinter groups?
Which splinter groups?
The splinter groups of, now I can't find my notes. You'd referenced the splinter groups from the various splinter groups of the from ISIS, Al-Shabaab, and the others, that how they are persistent and disruptive, and that there are the smaller splinter groups that have broken off. Well, let me ask a different way. Do those smaller groups, and smaller does not mean ineffective, smaller just means smaller in numbers and size. Have you found that there is a, check here the question, are there different challenges with working or trying to counter the smaller groups of terrorist groups, as opposed to maybe those that are larger, maybe more defined, better funded? Are the smaller splinter groups, these tiny groups, are they more of a challenge than the overall topic of countering violent extremism?
Actually, this splinter groups is an extension of the main, from the motherboard, particularly, for instance, Al-Shabaab in 2020, there were, had made a communique with regard to expand its trade by creating, semi-autonomous groups in neighboring countries like Kenya, Ethiopia, Somaliland, Djibouti, and to some extent down to Tanzania, Uganda, and the like. Therefore, it is, in combination of the major threats from the Somalia, they are coming just to expand the jihadists. They came up with a communique to have what you call a jihadist movement is the same threat and equally threaten the member states of IGAD. The same thing is true, just like ISIS. The Daesh issue. Last time, as I read the issue, for instance, currently some groups, some cells, which was dormant in Sudan, has been taken some measures by the Sudanese government. The same thing is true. There is element in Kenya, in Ethiopia, by their own citizens, like the Kenyans, the Ethiopians, and others. So it is a general threat to the region. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anybody else want to add anything here? Chris, go ahead, please. Thank you, baby.
I'm not sure I understand the question fully, but I think some of the risks you have is when we saw in Somalia or the ICU, which was a moderate, I suppose, fundamentalist group in compared to Al-Shabaab, and when they were beaten, Al-Shabaab came out as the result as a more radical version of jihad. So the risks about the splinter groups is that they will be more radical and more determined. And we see at the moment we have ongoing conflict between the federal government and a relatively modest Islamic militant group in Galmudug, Al-Usuna. And the risk there, of course, is that the fighting is going on has claimed up to 100 lives in the last few days. And that threatens to then push moderate Islamic militia into the more fundamentalist Islamic militia. So fracturing a militia that may not be, that may eventually come to the political table and be reconciled into the system, into those who won't, always presents a problem in how you deal with these issues.
Thank you. All right, gentlemen, we're going to swing off to a different question. And this is, I mean, it all ties in. And one of the common threads we hear and we talk about is technology, excuse me, technology and infrastructure. So the next question may be, excuse me, more focused to Dave's expertise. But again, I ask everybody to answer if you've got something for this. So let me read the question. David, you discussed technology is easy to get, but hard to get into the field. Would you give us some examples of the types of technologies that are the hardest to get into the field? And I'm going to add a little bit on that is, what do you see as the second or third order effect of not being able to get those technologies into the field? How do you, and how do you mitigate that? That's a long question now, I'm sorry, but technology is so key. I'm going to just pass this baton over to you virtually and see what you can tell us. Thank you.
Thanks. I think probably the hardest to get in the field at the moment requires a combination of technology and humans to get it in the field. So if you wanted to, just as an example, distribute information easily, you'd have to have some form of network infrastructure on something like a border. Now, to set up a network infrastructure is very simple. It's not simple when you stretch along a border that doesn't have a lot of accessibility, and there's not a lot of power available. And then, of course, you need people to go and put this infrastructure up. So that in itself is one of the easy technologies, but a very difficult one to implement along a very long border. If you want to couple that now with the obvious, we're going to connect cameras onto this network. Cameras themselves are pretty much readily available. But once again, to set it up on a border where you have accessibility issues, then of course you're going to have problems that that you put up anything that looks new is going to probably get investigated and might even get stolen. So the simple one of a network of cameras is problematic. If you start to expand on that now and you start to put a bit more of a complex technology, if you put things like aircraft in the air or UAVs in the air, you start to make it a bit more expensive. Also still reasonably readily available, but now your infrastructure is now going to start becoming even more complicated, because now you need airfields, even though there may be small airfields that are within the zone of operation. So the problem that you've got is that on a very lengthy border, it is not easy to cover the whole area with technology easily. It's just very problematic. So you actually have to take a more pragmatic approach about what you actually want to implement there. and you actually have to decide on a policy to be able to implement it. So the first thing you're going to need is you're going to have to gather a hell of a lot of information. So you need a data center where you can actually store this information. Once again, putting up servers and storing them somewhere is readily available. It's just, where do you go and put this so that you can actually protect it and have it easily available? The other problem that you've got is when you start to do this is you need the people to start to processing this data. So now you have to have trained people. So you've got to start the process of training people up, which means that they've got to be within range of this data center so that they can actually work. Because remember, the network that we wanted to set up is already seen to be problematic. It's not like you can do what we're doing now over a border and use a network to talk thousands of kilometers. It's not that easy. So I think that the problem with implementing technology on a border, you've actually got to have a policy first. So for me, one of the policies that is essential is that whatever you get, whatever data you get, has got to be seamlessly available to all of those that need it. The problem with that is that means that you're actually requiring that this information be available to both parties either side of the fence. In other words, either side of the borders, those parties have to have accessibility to the information. It's not that whoever's got the money has the information. Everybody's got to have the information. Once you have that as a starting point, you can start looking at how you gather that information and start distributing it.
That's great. Thank you. Raymond, I see your hand up. Yes, sir.
Yes, our colleague has almost answered the issues I want to raise, but I wanted to say that the key point is sustainability. If you are going to provide technologies to certain border points, how are you going to ensure continued usability in that particular area so that in the near future, when you go back, you can find that the technologies you provided are already there and they are being used for the purpose you provided for. So you need to ensure strategies of ownership. You need to have local administrations and the government taking over the maintenance, safekeeping capacities for maintenance. And you also need to invest in human capital and the resources. Have the necessary technical staff to man the technology you have provided so that there is continuity in terms of usage of that technologies. The other thing I noticed when I was working in the IGAD region is that before you provide a technology, technological tools, you need to do a mapping of the existing infrastructure that can support that technology you are providing. Do you have mobile network coverage? Do you have electricity? Do you have the necessary human capital, things like that, so that you don't provide new technologies which are vital in a particular remote area, but then there is no network. There are no other existing technology to support that initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. That's, again, we see that there is not just one answer from one particular expertise or subject matter, that we're looking at not just policies, but the need for the data centers. I mean, we see where Dave has the infrastructure, well, not the infrastructure, the equipment, the technology, but how do we implement it? How do we sustain it? How do we maintain it? The things of training people, data centers, you train people, you put equipment in certain areas. Perhaps those are areas where people don't live at this point because they're remote. You've got to be able to get people to be there, to train them. The lengthy border is difficult to cover. And again, I'm just looking at my notes, but it's a comprehensive issue with a comprehensive solution. Sir, I see we, excuse me, now joined by General Masinawa. Sir, thank you very much. I'd like to see if we could have your opinion on this when it comes to in your experience, and I'm trying to pull up my question here. Sorry, technology is not being kind to me this very moment. Sir, could you give us your thoughts on the type of technologies that perhaps best support efforts in your environment, in your area, when it comes to the borders? Do you have anything in particular that is, I'll say, special or different from some of the other areas, something that's unique to your particular situation with the border security? And you're on mute, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Very good. I just made some of the discussion halfway because I think I linked off on the wrong or the other panel before I was redirected here. And then unfortunately, I was equally called out for another brief meeting somewhere. However, I'm happy to be here with you and to share some of our experience and challenges. Indeed, like I said earlier, our border is wide, and we have a lot of security agencies that are covering the official borders. Now, our challenges are the unofficial outposts that people are using for trafficking in of goods and persons. And those are the main challenges, really. Now, how do we do? That was one of the questions I threw open the other day. How does technology come in to cover that area? Yes, technology can come in if we have particularly the unmanned aerial vehicles that can cover those open areas that are not manned by humans. Establishing command and control centers, and I think the government is already, the customs are already working towards that, having established command and control centers, and then I think they also have some few aircrafts which they use for patrol. But that is not enough, because to my opinion, considering the vast security agencies in charge of border control and border security, to my opinion, we need to have a centralized control. It's very key to pull all these resources together under one control, just as, like I say, it was done, or I observe it's done in the US. It was Homeland Defense. But a situation whereby all the security agencies are more or less independent, particularly due to resource control, I think that's where there is no unity of effort.
On that note, sir, I think I need to wrap it up because we're coming close to our 30 minutes on a panel, but that's interesting. It's interesting to hear, particularly about the aircraft and not having enough, just not having enough. And that goes to then the next issue being resources. But we could probably talk for another 30 minutes, if not longer. So I've got to take my responsibilities as the panel chair here and say, we are coming to an end. Gentlemen, I would like to, we have just a few minutes left, 3 minutes left. Quickly, please unmute yourself and just, I mean, quickly, 30-second wrap-up summary with regard to this topic. Dave, we'll start with you.
Okay.
Thank you. It probably would be fantastic if we could all get together as a group and in actual fact discuss possible options, whether it's been provided by either one, but that at the end of the day, we can come up with a solution that is Africa-based, that we can in actual fact use it to the potential of all the countries here, that it can be a master plan going forward. And I think that for me would be a step in the right direction. The command and control, that's exactly what we're looking at.
Great, thank you. Abebi.
Thank you, Madam. Actually, I suggest just to promote homemade solutions. Homemade solutions in a sense. For instance, this morning I visited the Ethiopian Information Network Security Agency. This has a potential of professionals who can create what you call these UAVs just for surveillance devices. The most critical issue on this regard is that the financial issue. Therefore, if we can manage to support financially, state has a capacity to create their own homemade solution. I thank you so much.
Thank you. That's a great point. I wish we had more time to talk about homemade solutions. That's a great point. Raymond, please.
Yes, I would just say that securing borders ensures that there's enhanced cross-border cooperation and regional integration. The more we think out of the box, the more we are innovative in terms of adopting the smart technologies which are available, the more we are going to secure our borders, and this will bring regional integration. So let's think critically how we can put in place necessary technologies to assist border officials and the governmental institutions in enhancing border management and security. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, last comment?
Okay, the one thing not mentioned here is the political dimension of integrated border management. Here in the Horn of Africa, you've got conflicts over borders between Somaliland and Puntland, and evictions in Ghetto and Jubaland, the maritime dispute, and disputes over borders all over this region. It is a regional issue. Integrated border management is not a national issue, it's a regional issue. And the role of the African Union and the ability of the African Union to rise above local politics and national politics and develop regional politics is the key to successful integrated border management.
Thank you very much. General, we did have your comments, so I'm going to wrap it up here and say, I can't thank each and every one of you enough. Those of you that are watching from the audience, gentlemen, the panel, you've been, it's been a learning experience for me to hear you, the experts in the field, talk about this subject. I think my one takeaway is when we talk about innovation, it's almost about imagination. You are only constrained by your imagination, because if you can figure something out, if you can imagine it, the bad guys can imagine it as well. So I think that it's important to take a look at an innovation, an innovative support, innovative solution. And it would be great, Dave, to all get together and sit down and put together a master plan, because bringing together relationships and partnerships is what we're all about. So with that, thank you very much, everyone. I want to thank GRV Global for this opportunity, and I hope everyone has a safe passage back to their home.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
listening.
Thank you and all the best.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.